As you just saw, that was our film, our opening 2 minutes of our film After Dark. I hope you all enjoyed it. Our brief was to create a 2-minute opening to a horror film, or to any film of any genre. We decided to choose horror based on our research.
Okay, so in what ways does your media product use, develop, or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? So through our research, we grasped that certain aspects of our opening, 2 minutes to a horror film, needed to be similar to other established films in order to be able to target our audience. And we analysed films of the same genre, for example Saw, to follow their conventions, so our film deemed to be professional and recognisable. However, on the same note, we still wanted to challenge forms and conventions in order to convey a strong message behind our film. I'm going to show you like few clips that we got inspiration from please.
It's unfortunate. We were going to show you 2 clips from YouTube, but it doesn't seem to work due to technical difficulties.
Okay, so soundtrack. The soundtrack challenged forms and convention of our horror film as we had to develop suitable music which contrasts with the genre of our film. The music, which was non-diegetic, started from the beginning of the scene and continued throughout. We believe that this caused an eerie and enigmatic scene for the audiences, which was the exact response wanted. After we explored ways in which other movies use soundtrack to portray their genre, we were able to figure out that the type of music that we wanted for our film. These are some of the examples we got. We used a few of these soundtracks. And the inspiration we got was from Saw, and that is this at the beginning when you can hear like lullabies going in the beginning of our opening. We got it from Saw, but obviously it wasn't copyright, so we had to get our own. And that is.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart.
Okay, so in our research, we found that many horror movies build up anticipation, similarly to how we did for ours, having some sort of eerie suspense, like music to keep the audience engaged. So these are some of the sites we used it, making sure that it was copyright free. Okay, we challenged the conventions by the characters because our female was Asian, which breaks the conventions of having a white American actress. Furthermore, she was a British accent, which is fitting as it was a British film. The main character is mentally disturbed and possibly dangerous, which puts a twist on the usual expectancy of the male being a threat. Nathan, we came to this decision because we strongly believe in multiculturalism, to have a range of races which will appeal to our audiences and contrast with the target audience. Our main character, Abby, it's common to have a female being the victim in a horror film, and girls usually portray innocence and stereotypically seen as the weaker sex. Females are easier to target in films like horror films. Using a female can also bring back the male gaze of cinematography, and representation of 2 different portrayals of the teenagers were portrayed through their dialogue, voice, attitude, and their costumes. These are 2 of our characters, as you can see that they're both in school uniform, portraying that they're going about their everyday life. Okay, so camera work. We used our initial shots inspired from Saw. It didn't go according to plan because when we actually filmed the shots, but when we put it into our film, it didn't flow, so we had to change the type of the shot. And after research, we gathered that extreme close-up were more effective as it gives full expression of the character and puts the audience in the same position as they were if they felt the position of the character. For example, like if you have the close-up of their face, you can see the position that they're feeling and how the situation would be like. We also use zoom in and zoom out so the audience can focus on the object, which was used in the beginning of our opening film when the character was sat down. Our film applied and developed this idea of focusing on a character of interest, like I said before at the start of our film. Yeah, we use medium close-up, which is usually used in horror films. Yeah, so we use the range like tracking, panning, so we try to use a wide range, so therefore we follow the conventions of normal films. Okay, so in editing, okay, so this is our production team, and we had to we used effects on Final Cut to give us this watery effect, and throughout our opening we used a fade, which to make it flow, and these are some of the textures we used for our opening. And also this is, you can see our timeline, and these are the sounds we use, so we type up, and these, the keynotes, we use that to break up the sound. So at some places where the music was played, we wanted it to be diegetic, so we took the music down by breaking up the keynotes. And the maison scene, our initial location was supposed to be in the main building, however we had no control over the lights, so we had to change our location. And so the second one was in a common room, we had to change it. And the setting sets the characters, sets the environment that they're in. Like our audience are 15 to 30-year-olds, so the audience know the sense of environment that characters are in because of their age range. And so, yeah. And also the clothing, like I've mentioned before, it portrays the environment of the setting as they're in their casual school uniform. And genre, horror film is a genre that aims to create a sense of panic, alarm and dread for the audience. These films are often unsettling and rely on scaring the audience. A narrative is similar to a majority of horror films, for example Hostel, and these are different films that we've got inspiration for, and they both feature torture scenes, pleasure, and to try to scare people and keep them off their feet. And also this is some of the research we got from the DFC ratings, and this is the way we come about choosing our target audience was seeing the difference between the ratings of 12 and 15. So we chose that because we have strong threat in ours, we realised that we need to keep it from 15 rating. And also in our opening we can see equilibrium and disruption, however we couldn't continue because obviously it's the opening 2 minutes, so total theory didn't really apply to us, only that we can only see equilibrium and disruption, so we didn't see any equilibrium towards the end. Okay, so how does your media product represent particular social groups? Okay, so both our characters are the same age, however, one is male and one is female. The age range is from 15 to 30, and they portray how both genders are explored in horror films. It's uncommon for us to see an Asian female as a leading character, so we thought it'd be quite unique and different to bring something fresh into the cinemas. And also, often in films, Asian films are shown as the smart ones and traditionally outlook alive, especially older Asian females. The British film industry have successful films with Asian female leads that go against stereotypes such as Bend It Like Beckham and Pride and Prejudice. Challenging the idea of a female protagonist, we decided to have Abby as an Asian character. This is fresh for the mainstream horror genre, which lacks in strong non-white roles. We wanted to create something potentially new and different without alienating the audience and being too different. And as there is such a big Asian community in the UK, creating an Asian lead can reach a wider new audience that initially might not watch the film. And over to Judy.
What type of media institution will distribute your media production product and why. From research, we have found that the majority of horror films are distributed by distributor companies such as Lionsgate and Paramount. We obtained inspiration from Lionsgate simply because of Saw. It is dark, it is gruesome, and it is practically not for the faint-hearted. But in that sense, we also wanted other people to come and watch our films, so we didn't want it to be just full on blood, gore, and violence. So we wanted a supernatural side villain as well. So we got inspiration from Paramount's Paranormal Activity, which is based on supernatural beings being in a house. How did you address your audience? As I just said, it's mostly based on having the type of, it's having the audience, what the audience wants is either gory violence or a psychological type scare. For males, it is mostly they want to see blood and guts and people dying frequently in a film, i.e. torture scenes or any other type of gruesome deaths. Females, however, they will tend to be, they do not like blood and that type because they're squeamish, so they would rather get a jump or a scare in ghost films such as Paranormal Activity.
This is some of the audience research we did to carry out what type of elements male and females prefer. So we have blood, sounds, and then we have blood. So this kind of gave us an idea of what type of audience we need to look out for, and what ages also prefer horror. So this is how we got the indication of what our target audience was.
What have you learned about the technologies used from the construction of your product? Technology used were a simple 1080i camcorder used to film the whole product. Furthermore, we also used the IMAX with Final Cut Pro 10. We used the IMAX with Final Cut Pro 10. We used YouTube tutorials to help us understand how to use Final Cut, as practically neither of us knew how to use special features with transitions, fades, and editing the type of music. We also used GarageBand, which allowed us to create our own music to help us into the films, which we did not use. During the time of filming, I have learnt how to create a film from scratch, create a storyboard, script, and practically edit a whole 2-minute film into a final product to be shown to an audience. This also had difficulties from the preliminary. For example, we had to have a timetable to allow us to know when we can film with the actors, and to see whether the maze on scene, the setting, was available to be used for filming.
Okay, and I've learned during our opening 2 minutes that angles are really vital. For example, we didn't want to break the 180-degree rule, and also angles which are effective towards our genre, for example, close-ups. And yeah, from our prelim, we had difficulties, so at that time we didn't use our storyboard. So this time, when we were editing, we actually sat down with our storyboard and worked along with it, so that helped us with our. Yeah. And initially we had many ideas. For example, in our prelim, we used Steadicams with the character whilst walking. However, we could hear a lot of sound in the background, and it wasn't steady and it didn't flow. So this time we wanted to do it, but we couldn't because we didn't have the correct equipment here. Does anyone have any questions?
wait a minute. What was the challenge in picking the genre that you did?
The challenge mostly was to create the scare that the audience want. So we were afraid that it was a little bit too boring at the beginning with just conversation on conversation and shot reverse shot, and it was just a simple scare moment at the end, and we didn't actually think it would be successful with that. So what we did with our product was to have a sequence of scary moments to make the audience jump.
Also, adding to that was that in the beginning we had a lot of conversation, and that didn't look good when we were editing. However, after our research, we saw that in a horror film we have loads of close-ups and snapping from different facial expressions. Therefore, as you saw in our film, we had loads of flashing back to the scenes of when Nathan was showing he's possessed. So we had close-ups, and so that really kept everyone on their feet. So from our research, we kind of.
Any questions?
If you were to do it again, what would you change?
I'll probably change the location, because the location was an issue, a really big issue. We wanted to use the corridors within the school, but as mentioned, we did not have control of the lights. It would have only been a 5-second filming time, as they would turn back on with a generator. So the common room was not an ideal location, because it's just the same thing throughout the room, so it's not a different maison scene in any shot.
Yeah, and adding to that, at the beginning when we had all our locations and everything set, we had a script, we had everything sorted, and then we found out that we couldn't have control of the lights, so we had to change everything. But this was our last resort, but we had to play with it.